Hi guys, in today's video I want to talk about progressing your mobility training. Now yesterday I dropped a video on my Patreon which one of the subscribers asked for in terms of mobility for boxing. And one of the things I mentioned in this was the importance of loaded mobility and being able to sneak this kind of loaded work into your warm-up. One, because it's time efficient. Two, because when you add strength at length, i.e. loaded mobility, then it sticks around longer term because you're actually loading your muscles and you're teaching your brain that it's okay to put yourself in certain positions. Whereas stuff like foam rolling and stretching, although it's useful and it can calm the nervous system down temporarily, doesn't tend to lead to long-term changes, and you find that you have to input a hell of a lot more time in order to do this. So what do I mean by progressing your mobility? Well, first thing, make sure you're tracking it in some way, shape or form. I used to train with a good friend of mine, and he would mark the dowel rods. So when he was doing his overhead squats with them or some shoulder rotations, he could try and get this grip width of his hands narrower each time, requiring more shoulder mobility. Another way you can do this is if you think about the movements you're using in the warm-up. So let's say you want to warm up your hamstrings, or you want to groove your hip hinge pattern. Now you might just use a dowel rod hip hinge, which is very simple and there's minimal load, or you could use something like a kettlebell RDL. Now for some people that kettlebell RDL, depending on the weight, might be a strength exercise, but for others it might be a mobility exercise. Now for example, when I'm training for a competition, I will, let's say on the move of the session I'm going to be doing RDLs, I may well just warm up with a lighter version of the weight. So I may just stick 25 kilo plates on, and to warm up for my heavy RDLs I just use lighter RDLs. Now that to somebody else might be a strength exercise. Equally, if you look at something like an RDL where the bar is close to your thighs or your quads, versus say a good morning where it's on your back, the distance in between at the end of that hip hinge pattern and where the stretch is being placed is bigger for something like a good morning than an RDL. This means you're going to get a greater stretch doing something like a good morning versus an RDL. So if your hamstring and calf mobility is reasonably okay, then you can bump it up a little bit further by doing a good morning. Equally, you can elevate your toes on some plates to get an added stretch at the calf and hamstring. That's something to think about, because if you're doing the same warm-up every single time and you're at least investing in that process, yes, there's some psychological benefits for doing the same thing every time, but if you're going to train for a long time, let's say weeks, months, years, then you want to know that your time invested is going to be giving you more and more rewards the more often you do it and the longer you spend on it. We don't want to spend ages on one thing just to stay the same level.